Every day begins with a story. Welcome to Narites, where love is never simple. The first thing he noticed was the cold, not the kind that touched your skin and left. No, this one settled deep inside his bones. His eyes fluttered open slowly. The sound of waves crashing echoed faintly in the distance. For a moment, he didn't move, didn't breathe, didn't think. Where am I? His voice came out weak. Unfamiliar. He frowned. That wasn't right. He pushed himself up slowly, his body trembling slightly, then froze. Because this was not his room. No ceiling, no walls, no bed, just endless blue, water. His heart dropped. No. He looked down, and everything inside him went silent. His legs were gone, in their place. A long, shimmering tail reflected the light beneath the surface. Beautiful, unreal, terrifying. What? His breathing quickened, his mind racing too fast. This isn't real. This isn't real. But it was, because when he tried to move, the tail responded. Naturally, like it had always been his. That's when the memories hit. Not his own. A story. A BL novel he had read just days ago. A tragic one. The kind that left you feeling empty after finishing it. Because the main character didn't get a happy ending. No. His voice shook. No, no, no. Because he remembered. He remembered everything. The merman. The love story. The betrayal. The pregnancy. The abandonment. And the ending. Alone. He swallowed hard. I'm him. The realization crushed him. He had transmigrated into the story, not as a hero, not as someone powerful, but as the one who would be left behind. This is a joke, but deep down he knew it wasn't, because his chest tightened, his heart raced, and his body reacted like it belonged here. I'm gonna get pregnant. The words came out barely above a whisper, and he's gonna leave me. Silence. The ocean around him felt colder, darker, heavier. He remembered the male lead. Powerful, cold, untouchable. The kind of man who didn't stay. The kind of man who loved but still walked away. No. His expression hardened slightly. No, I'm not doing this. He clenched his hands. I know how this story ends, and that meant he had a choice. Follow the original path and suffer, or change everything. Days passed. He learned quickly, too quickly, how to move, how to breathe, how to survive. This body, this world. It all started to feel real, too real, until the day everything changed. He saw him, standing at the edge of the shore, tall, broad, powerful, the male lead, Kong Tae-hyun. Even from a distance, his presence was overwhelming. Sharp eyes, dark expression, unapproachable. Exactly how the story described him. So that's him. His heart started beating faster, not from love, from fear, because he knew this was the beginning, the moment everything started going wrong. In the original story, this was where they met, where attraction began, where everything slowly led to destruction. I should leave. He turned slightly, ready to swim away, to avoid it, to change his fate. But wait, his body froze. That voice, deep, commanding. Did he just stop? Closer now, he slowly turned back, and their eyes met. For the first time, and something shifted, not just in the air, but inside him. What are you? Taehyun's voice was low, dangerous, curious, he should lie. He knew that, but instead he stayed silent. And that silence pulled Taehyun closer, step by step, until he stood right at the edge of the water, looking down at him. You're not human. Not a question, a statement. His heart pounded. So what if I'm not? Taehyun didn't move, didn't react. But his gaze darkened slightly. Then you're mine. That was not in the original story. And suddenly everything felt different, dangerously different. Because this time the story wasn't following the same path. And neither was he. I'm not yours. Taehyun's lips curved slightly. We'll see. And just like that, the story began. Not the one he read, but a new one. One that could either save him or destroy him even worse. Taehyun didn't leave. That was the first thing that felt wrong. In the original story, he was supposed to walk away. Cold. Uninterested. Curious, yes, but distant enough to keep things from starting too quickly. But now he stayed. You're not afraid of me, Taehyun said, his voice low as he crouched closer to the water. The distance between them shrank. Too fast. Too easily. I should be, he replied, trying to keep his voice steady. Taehyun studied him. Not like a man looking at something strange, but like a man. Try to understand something he wanted. You don't act like someone that hides, Taehyun said. That made him pause. Because the truth was, he didn't want to hide. Not anymore. Maybe I'm tired of hiding, he said quietly. Taehyun's eyes flickered slightly, something unreadable passing through them. Then he stood up. You can come out, Taehyun said. What? The water? Taehyun repeated calmly. Come out. He let out a small laugh. You're joking. I'm not. I can't just walk out of the ocean, he said dryly. Taehyun tilted his head slightly. Then, without warning, he stepped forward. Into the water. Hey! But it was too late. Cold water soaked through Taehyun's clothes instantly as he moved deeper, his gaze never leaving him. What are you doing? He asked, completely thrown off. Taehyun stopped when the water reached his waist. Close. Too close. Testing something, Taehyun said. Before he could react, Taehyun reached out, his hand wrapped gently around his wrist. And in that moment, everything changed. The tail flickered, light shimmered across it, then disappeared. And suddenly legs, he gasped. What? Taehyun pulled him forward instinctively, catching before he lost balance. Their bodies collided. Warm, solid, real. So you can change, Taehyun murmured. His heart was racing too fast. This wasn't how it was supposed to happen. In the story, the transformation came later, slower, with trust, with time. But now everything was happening too fast. Let go, he said quickly, tried to step back, but Taehyun didn't. Instead, his grip tightened slightly. What's your name? Why do you want to know? Taehyun's gaze dropped briefly, then returned his face. Because I don't plan on forgetting you. That line wasn't in the story either. Jehun, he said before he could stop himself. Taehyun repeated it softly. Jehun! The way he said it made something in his chest tighten. Taehyun, he added. I know. Jehun replied quietly. Taehyun's eyes narrowed slightly. How? Jehun froze, right? He knew too much. You look like someone important, he said quickly. Taehyun studied him again. Longer this time. Then slowly he let go. Come with me. Jehun frowned. Where? My place? No. The answer came immediately. Taehyun didn't look surprised. You don't trust me. Jehun let out a quiet breath. Should I? A pause. Then no. That honesty caught him off guard. Then why are you asking me to go with you? Taehyun's expression didn't change. Because I want to. Simple. Direct. Dangerous. Jehun shook his head slightly. This isn't how this works. Taehyun stepped closer again. Then show me how it works. Silence. Jehun stared at him. This man was not following the script, and that made him more dangerous than before. I don't belong in your world, Jehun said quietly. Taehyun's gaze softened slightly. Then I'll come to yours. That broke something. Because in the original story, Taehyun never said things like that. He never tried. He never stayed. You don't understand, Jehun whispered. Then explain to me. I can't. Why? Because if I do, Jehun's voice dropped. You'll leave anyway. Silence. For a moment, Taehyun didn't respond. Then he stepped even closer. So close, Jehun could feel his breath. Try me. And that was the moment everything shifted. Because for the first time, Jehun hesitated. Not because he was scared, but because he wanted to believe him. Fine, Jehun said slowly. Taehyun didn't move, didn't interrupt. I'm not human. Jehun continued. I don't belong here. I shouldn't even be near you. Taehyun's expression remained calm. I already figured that part out. Jehun frowned. I mean it, he said. If you get involved with me, it won't end well. For who? Taehyun asked. For me. Another pause. Then Taehyun did something unexpected. He smiled. Not cold, not distant, but real. Then I guess I'll have to make sure it ends differently. Jehun's heart skipped, because that wasn't supposed to happen. He was supposed to walk away. He was supposed to break him. He was supposed to leave him pregnant. Alone. But now, you're already changing things, Jehun whispered. Taehyun tilted his head slightly. Good. That word sent a chill down his spine, because if the story was changing, then the ending had changed too. Or it could become something even worse. And somehow Jehun didn't know which one scared him more. But one thing was certain. This time, he wasn't going to be the same person who suffered quietly. Not again. Not in this life. And definitely not for love. Jehun should have left. He knew that. Every instinct, every memory of the story, told him to swim away, to disappear before things could get worse. But his feet didn't move. Taehyun didn't push him this time. He didn't grab him again. Didn't command him. He simply stepped back. I won't force you, Taehyun said quietly. That was new. Jehun looked at him, confusion flickering across his face. In the original story, Taehyun was impatient, cold. He took what he wanted. But now, you can go, Taehyun added. Jehun didn't. The silence stretched. Why are you still here? Taehyun asked. Jehun hesitated. Then, I don't know. And that was the truth, because something about this version of Taehyun pulled him in dangerously. Then stay, Taehyun said. Not a command, not a demand, an invitation. And for some reason, that felt more dangerous than anything else. That night, Jehun didn't return to the ocean. He followed Taehyun, not into a trap, not into something forced, but into something unknown. The house was massive, cold, empty. It didn't feel like a home. It felt like a place someone stayed in, not lived in. Jehun stood at the entrance, taking it all in. You live here alone? Taehyun removed his wet coat casually. Yes, it's quiet. I like it that way. Jehun glanced around again. No, you don't. Taehyun paused, and you talk a lot. Jehun shrugged. You listen. That made Taehyun look at him. Really look at him. You're strange, Taehyun said. Jehun smiled faintly. I've been told. Days turned into something unexpected. Jehun stayed. At first, he told himself it was temporary, just until he figured things out, just until he decided what to do. But slowly, that temporary turned into routine. Taehyun would leave early, return late. But no matter how late it was, he always came back. And every time his eyes searched for Jehun. You're still here, Taehyun said one night. Jehun raised a brow. Should I not be? Taehyun shook his head slightly. I thought you'd leave. Jehun looked at him quietly. So did I. It started small. meals together, conversations that lasted longer than expected, silences that didn't feel empty anymore. Jehun learned things about him, that he drank coffee late at night, that he worked too much, that he didn't sleep enough. And Taehyun, he learned Jehun laughed easily, that he hated being alone, that he stared out the window when he was thinking too much. They didn't talk about feelings, but they felt them everywhere. The first time it happened, neither of them expected it. It was late, quiet. Jehun stood by the window, watching the city lights below. It's beautiful, he murmured. Taehyun stepped beside him. Close. It's just a city? Jehun shook his head. No, it's alive. Taehyun looked at him. You see things differently. Jehun smiled softly. I had to. Silence. Then Taehyun spoke again. Stay. Jehun blinked. I am staying. Taehyun shook his head slightly. No. I mean, stay. The meaning behind it was clear, not temporary, not uncertain. Something more. Jehun's heart tightened. You don't know me, he said quietly. I know enough. That's not true. Then let me learn. That was it. The moment he lost, because Jehun didn't want to say no. It happened after that, naturally, like it was always meant to. A touch that lasted too long. A glance that held too much meaning. A silence that felt too close. Until there was no space left. The night it finally broke. Jehun didn't pull away. Taehyun didn't hesitate. And when their lips met, it wasn't soft. It wasn't careful. It was everything they'd been holding back. Weeks, days, moments, all at once. Jehun's fingers tightened against Taehyun's shirt. Taehyun pulled him closer. And for a moment, just one moment, Jehun forgot everything. The story, the ending, the pain, everything. That night, he chose love. Even knowing what it could cost him, days turned into weeks. And Jehun stopped resisting. He laughed more, smiled more, stayed closer. And Taehyun, he changed, subtly, but noticeably. He came home earlier, watched Jehun more, stayed close without reason, like he didn't want to lose him. That scared Jehun, because this was exactly how the story began. Perfect, beautiful. And then it broke. You're thinking too much again, Taehyun said one evening. Jehun blinked. Am I that obvious? Yes. Jehun sighed softly. I just don't want this to end. Taehyun stilled. Then it won't. Jehun looked at him. You don't know that. Taehyun stepped closer. I decide what stays. And that confidence, that certainty, made Jehun want to believe him, even when he knew he shouldn't. Because somewhere deep inside, he could already feel it, the shift, the moment approaching, the part of the story where everything begins to fall apart. And no matter how much he wanted to stop it, he knew it was coming. Jehun felt it before he understood it. At first, it was small, barely noticeable, a strange warmth in his body, a lingering exhaustion that didn't go away, no matter how much he rested. He ignored it, told himself it was nothing. But then it got worse. One morning, he barely made out of bed. His body felt heavy, his chest tight. What's wrong with me? He whispered. He sat up slowly, pressing a hand against his stomach. And that's when it hit him. The memory, the story, the exact moment everything changed. His breath caught. No. He shook his head quickly. No, it's too early. But deep down, he knew, because this was how it started. That day, he didn't go near Taehyun. He stayed in the room, avoided eye contact, avoided conversation, but Taehyun noticed immediately. He always did. You've been quiet, Taehyun said later that evening, standing by the door. Jehun didn't look at him. I'm tired. That's not it. Silence. Taehyun stepped closer. Jehun, that tone, it made his chest tighten. What is it? Jehun swallowed. He could tell him. He should tell him. But the story replayed in his mind. The moment the male lead found out. The moment everything changed. The distance. The coldness. The abandonment. I'm fine, Jehun said quietly. Taehyun didn't believe him. You're lying. Jehun forced a small smile. Since when did you start caring so much? Taehyun frowned slightly. I always did. That hurt more, because his version of Taehyun, he was different. He was kind, careful, and that made what was coming even worse. Days passed. Jehun confirmed it. There was no denying it anymore. He was pregnant. The realization settled heavily in his chest. It's happening again. He sat quietly, staring at his reflection. The same story, the same path, but this time he knew, and that made it harder, because now he had a choice. Tell Taehyun and risk everything, or stay silent. Protect himself, protect the child. That night, Taehyun came home late. Jehun was still awake, waiting. You didn't sleep? Taehyun said, loosening his tie. Jehun shook his head slightly. I was thinking. Taehyun sighed. You always are? He stepped closer. Tell me. Jehun looked at him. Long, carefully. If something changes. Taehyun frowned slightly. What do you mean? Jehun hesitated. Would you stay? Silence. Taehyun's expression shifted slightly. I already am. That's not what I mean. Another pause. If things got complicated. Jehun's voice dropped. Would you still choose me? Taehyun stepped closer, without hesitation. Yes. The answer came too fast. Too easily. And somehow, that scared Jehun more than anything. Because in the original story, he said the same thing, before everything broke. You're lying, Jehun whispered. Taehyun's eyes darkened slightly. I don't lie. Then you're wrong. Silence. Taehyun's jaw tightened. Why do you keep pushing me away? He asked. Jehun didn't answer, because the truth was he wasn't pushing him away. He was trying to protect himself from what he already knew was coming. The shift happened suddenly. Too suddenly. Taehyun started getting busy. More work, more meetings, more late nights, less time, less attention, less presence. Jehun noticed. Of course he did. And with every passing day, the fear grew. It's starting, he whispered himself one night. This was it. The part of the story where Taehyun slowly pulled away, where distance replaced warmth, where love started to fade. You didn't wait for me. The words slipped out before Jehun could stop them. Taehyun looked up from his phone. What? You said you'd come back early. Taehyun sighed. I had work. You always have work. And you always complain. Silence. That wasn't how the conversations used to go. You've changed. Jehun said quietly. Taehyun's expression hardened slightly. No. A pause. You have... That broke something. Because Jehun knew this wasn't real. This wasn't Taehyun. This was a story. Pulling him back into the original path. Don't do this. Jehun said softly. Taehyun frowned. Do what? Don't become a person I'm afraid of. Silence. Taehyun stared at him. You're starting to say things that don't make sense. Jehun laughed quietly. Yeah, because how could he explain that he already lived this once? That he already knew how it ended? The breaking point came sooner than expected. It always did. A message, a name, a misunderstanding. Everything falling into place. Just like before, Taehyun stood in front of him, expression cold, distant. We need to talk. Jehun's heart dropped because those words, he remembered them perfectly. I know. Jehun whispered. Taehyun frowned slightly. You know, Jehun looked at him, and for the first time he didn't fight it. You're leaving. Silence. Taehyun didn't deny it. That was enough. Jehun smiled faintly, just like before. What are you talking about? Taehyun asked. Jehun shook his head. Nothing. Because it didn't matter. The story was repeating itself. And no matter what he did, it still led here. Take care of yourself, Taehyun said quietly. That line, that exact line. Jehun closed his eyes briefly. You too. And just like that, he left. Again. This time, Jehun didn't chase him. Didn't cry out. Didn't beg. He just stood there, hand resting lightly on his stomach. It's just us now, he whispered. And even though it hurt, he didn't break. Because this time, he was ready. The house felt too quiet after he left. Not the peaceful kind of quiet, but the kind that echoed. Jehun stood there for a long time. Not moving. Not thinking. Just standing. The door was still slightly open. Cold air slipping in. So this is it, he whispered. His hand rested gently on his stomach. We're really alone now. No tears came. Not this time. Because deep down, he had already prepared himself for this moment. Still, it hurt. More than he expected. He didn't stay. Not in that house. Not in that memory. By morning, he was gone. No goodbye. No explanation. Just silence. The ocean welcomed him back. Cold. Familiar. But this time, it didn't feel like home. Because something had changed. He had changed. I can't stay here, Jehun murmured. Not with a child. Not with a future. He needed something more. Something safer. The human world. It was dangerous. Unpredictable. But it had one thing the ocean didn't. Opportunity. Months passed. Jehun learned quickly. Again. How to survive. How to blend in. How to hide what he was. And slowly he built a life. Not a perfect one. But enough. A small apartment. A simple job. A routine. And in the middle of it all, the child. Growing. You're strong. Jehun whispered one night, sitting by the window. His hand rested gently against his stomach. Stronger than I was. The pregnancy wasn't easy. It never was. There were nights he couldn't sleep. Days he could barely stand. Moments where fear threatened to swallow him whole. But he didn't give up. Not for himself. For the child. When the time came, he didn't panic. Didn't break. He endured. And when the cries finally filled the room, Jehun smiled. For the first time in a long time, you're here, he whispered. A small hand wrapped around his finger. Warm. Alive. Real. You're mine. He named him in June. Years passed. 5. And life moved on. Minjun grew quickly. Too quickly. Bright eyes. Soft laughter. Endless questions. Papa, why don't I have an appa? The question came one evening. Simple. Innocent. Jehun froze. He had always known this day would come. You do. Jehun said gently. Minjun blinked. Where is he? Silence. Jehun smiled softly. Far away. Why? Jehun hesitated. Because sometimes people don't know what they have until they lose it. Minjun frowned. I don't understand. Jehun chuckled quietly. You will one day, but somewhere far away. Someone already understood. Kang Taehyun hadn't slept in days. The office light stayed on long after everyone left. Files scattered. Reports ignored. Because none of it mattered. Not anymore. Find him. His voice was cold. Sharp. Desperate. His assistant nodded quickly. We're trying, sir. Trying isn't enough. Silence. Because this wasn't the same man from before. This was someone else. Someone who had realized too late. You said he left no trace. Taehyun continued. Yes, sir. Taehyun's jaw tightened. Then dig deeper, because something inside him wouldn't let go. At first, he thought it was anger, then frustration, but now he knew it was regret. Jehun, he whispered one night. The name felt unfamiliar on his lips, and yet it lingered, because for the first time, he was the one left behind. Years, lost, moments, gone, and something inside him refused to accept it. I need to find you, not for closure, not for answers, but because he couldn't live like this anymore. Back in the small apartment, Minjun laughed, running across the room. Papa, look. Jehun smiled. I see. For a moment, everything felt peaceful, safe, complete, but fate was never that kind, because somewhere paths were already crossing again, and this time nothing would stay hidden. Not the truth, not the past, and definitely not the child. It happened on an ordinary day. That was the strange thing about it. Not during a storm, not during some dramatic moment. Just a normal afternoon. Jehun had just finished work. Minjun was beside him, holding his hand, talking endlessly about something that happened at school. And then I told him that's not how dinosaurs work, Minjun said proudly. Jehun smiled softly. Oh, and you're an expert now. Yes, Minjun said seriously, because I read a book. Jehun laughed quietly. They stepped out onto the street, busy, alive, and then Jehun froze, because across the road, he saw him, Kang Taehyun, standing still, looking straight at him. No, not just him. At Minjun, the world seemed to stop. Papa? Minjun tugged his hand slightly. Jehun couldn't move, because that gaze, he remembered it. But now, it was different. No longer cold, no longer distant, but something else, something raw, something desperate. Jehun, that voice, it hadn't changed, but the way he said his name, it had. Jehun swallowed. Minjun, he said quietly, his voice steady despite everything. Go stand over there for a second. Minjun frowned slightly but obeyed, stepping a few feet away. Jehun looked back up. Taehyun was already crossing the road. Fast, too fast, until he was standing right in front of him. Close, too close. You left, Taehyun said, not accusing, just stating a fact. Jehun met his gaze. So, did you? Silence. Taehyun's breathing was uneven, like he had run a long distance. I've been looking for you, he said. Jehun didn't react. Why? He asked calmly. That question, it broke something, because Taehyun didn't have a simple answer. He stopped. Then, because I couldn't forget you. Jehun's chest tightened, but he didn't show it. You should have tried harder. Taehyun flinched slightly. I did? No. Jehun said quietly. You tried when it was too late. Silence. Then Taehyun's gaze shifted to the child standing a few feet away, watching, curious. Who is that? Taehyun asked. Jehun didn't answer immediately, because this was a moment, the one he had imagined 1,000 times, the one he had prepared for, and yet nothing felt ready. Minjun, Jehun called softly. The boy walked over, standing beside him, looking up at Taehyun. Papa? Minjun whispered. Taehyun's heart stopped, because that word, it didn't belong to him, and yet it felt like it did. How old is he? Taehyun asked slowly. Jehun held his gaze. 5. Silence. Heavy. Unavoidable. Taehyun did the math instantly, his breath caught. Jehun didn't look away. Yes, that was all it took. Taehyun stepped back slightly, like the world had just shifted under his feet. You didn't tell me, he whispered. Jehun's voice was calm. You left? That hit harder than anything. You should have told me, Taehyun said. Jehun shook his head slightly. And then what? Silence. Taehyun didn't answer, because he didn't know. Not back then, not when he chose to walk away. Minjun looked between them, confused. Papa, he said softly. Who is he? Jehun crouched down slightly. He's someone important. Taehyun's chest tightened. To you? Jehun added quietly. Minjun looked at Taehyun again, long, and, are you my appa? The question was simple, but it shattered everything. Taehyun's eyes filled slightly. Yes, he whispered. Minjun blinked, then smiled. Okay, just like that. No anger, no confusion. Just acceptance. Because children loved easily, Taehyun couldn't breathe, because he had missed everything. The first steps, the first words, the small moments, all gone. Jehun, his voice broke slightly. Why didn't you? I told you. Jehun said softly. You left? Silence. Taehyun's shoulders dropped slightly. For the first time, he looked defeated. I was wrong, he said. No pride, no hesitation, just truth. I know. That wasn't comfort, it was reality. I want to fix this. Taehyun said. Jehun looked at him. You can't fix the past. I know. Then what are you trying to fix? Taehyun stepped closer. The future? Silence. Jehun's heart trembled, because that was what he wanted, but not easily. Not this time. You don't get to come back and decide that. Jehun said. Taehyun nodded. You're right. Another step, but I'm not. Leaving again. That's certainty. It was different now. Stronger, real. Jehun looked at him. Long, carefully, Then prove it. Taehyun didn't hesitate. I will. Minjun tugged Jehun's hand. Can he come home with us? Silence. Jehun let out a small breath, then looked at Taehyun. This doesn't mean anything. Taehyun nodded. I know. But deep down, they both knew. It meant everything. That night, they sat in the same space again. Not as lovers, not as strangers, but as something between. Something fragile. Something rebuilding. Taehyun watched Minjun play quietly. Every movement. Every laugh. Try to memorize everything he missed. He likes you. Jehun said softly. Taehyun smiled faintly. He's easy to love. Jehun's gaze softened. He got that from me. Taehyun looked at him. Yeah, pause. He did. Later that night, Minjun fell asleep between them. Small, warm, safe, and for the first time in years, they didn't feel alone. Taehyun's hand moved slowly, resting gently over Jehun's. This time, Jehun didn't pull away. We're not the same people anymore, Jehun whispered. I know, so don't expect the same ending. Taehyun tightened his grip slightly. I'm hoping for a better one. And this time, for the first time, Jehun believed it might be possible, because love was never simple, but sometimes it deserved another chance. The night didn't end when Minjun fell asleep. It just became quieter. Jehun sat still on the couch, careful not to wake the child resting against him. Minjun's small hand was curled into his shirt, breathing soft and steady. Across from him, Taehyun didn't look away, not even once. It was as if every second mattered. As if blinking meant losing something again. You keep staring, Jehun said quietly. Taehyun didn't deny it. I missed 5 years. Jehun's fingers tightened slightly around Minjun. You did? No anger. No softness, just truth. Taehyun swallowed. I don't expect you to forgive me. Jehun glanced at him. Good. A pause. Because I won't. Taehyun nodded. I know. Silence. But this silence wasn't empty. It was filled with everything unsaid. Why did you come back? The question lingered in the air. Taehyun leaned back slightly, running a hand to his hair. Because I couldn't live with it anymore. With what? Taehyun looked at him. The fact that I chose wrong. Jehun's chest tightened. You didn't choose wrong. Taehyun frowned. I did. No. Jehun said quietly. You chose what you wanted at the time. That was worse, because it meant Jehun had never been enough, and now? Jehun asked. Taehyun didn't hesitate. Now I'm choosing you. Silence. Jehun let out a small breath. You don't get to decide that alone. I know. Then what are you doing here? Taehyun leaned forward slightly, trying to be part of it. Jehun looked down at Minjun. It's not just about me anymore. I know. Taehyun said, and that's why I'm not leaving. That word again, not leaving. Jehun didn't respond, because promises were easy. Staying wasn't. Days passed. Taehyun didn't disappear. Start with this. Taehyun took it carefully. Their fingers brushed, and neither of them moved away. You've changed, Jehun said softly. Taehyun didn't look up. I had to. Why? Taehyun paused. Because losing you wasn't enough. Jehun frowned slightly. What does that mean? Taehyun looked at him. It means I didn't understand what I lost until I realized I can get it back. Silence. And then I found out I had a son I never knew about. Taehyun added quietly. Jehun's chest tightened. That changes a person. Jehun turned away slightly. It should. That night they sat together again. Closer this time. Not touching, but not distant. Do you hate me? Taehyun asked suddenly. Jehun blinked. No. That answer came too easily. I tried to. Jehun added quietly. Taehyun looked at him, and Jehun let out a small breath. I was too tired to keep holding on to it. That was honest. Taehyun shifted slightly. Then what do you feel? Jehun hesitated, because that question was harder. I feel. He looked at Minjun, sleeping peacefully, careful. Taehyun nodded slowly. That's fair. A pause. Then Jehun spoke again. You don't get to hurt him. Taehyun's expression hardened slightly. I won't. You already did. Jehun said quietly. That hit hard. I know. And I won't let it happen again. Taehyun held his gaze. You have my word. Jehun didn't respond, because words still weren't enough. But actions were starting to matter. Days turned into weeks. Taehyun stayed consistent, picking Minjun up from school. Cooking badly, but trying. Showing up every time. And slowly, something inside Jehun softened. Not completely, but enough. One evening, Minjun sat between them, played with his toys. Appa, Papa, he said suddenly. They both looked at him. Why don't you sit closer? Silence. Jehun blinked. Taehyun almost laughed. Why? Jehun asked. Minjun frowned. Because you look far. That hit harder than anything. Slowly, Taehyun shifted. Closer. Not touching, but close enough. Jehun didn't move away. And for the first time, it didn't feel forced. It felt possible. Later that night, after Minjun fell asleep, Jehun stood by the window again. Just like before, Taehyun stepped beside him. You're thinking again. Jehun smiled faintly. I always am. A pause. Then, if I let you stay. Jehun said quietly, you don't get to leave again. Taehyun didn't hesitate. I won't. Not even if it gets hard. I won't. Not even if I push you away. Taehyun turned slightly. Then I'll stay anyway. Jehun looked at him. Long, carefully. You better. That was the closest thing to acceptance he had given. And Taehyun understood it completely. Slowly, he reached out. not rushing, not forcing. And this time, Jehun didn't stop him. Their hands met, warm, familiar, and after everything, still right. Because this time, they weren't starting over. They were building something new, something stronger, something that wouldn't break so easily, and maybe, just maybe, this time, they would get it right. Morning light filled the apartment gently. Soft, warm, peaceful. It was quiet, but not the lonely kind of quiet Jehun once knew. This one was different. It was a kind of quiet that came from a home that was full. Jehun stood in the kitchen, one hand resting lightly on the counter, the other on his stomach. He exhaled slowly. Still feels unreal, he murmured. Behind him, strong arms wrapped around his waist. Familiar, warm. You've been saying that for weeks. Taehyun said softly against his shoulder. Jehun smiled faintly. Because it still is. Taehyun's hand moved gently over his, resting on his stomach. It's real, he said quietly. A pause. We're really doing this again. Jehun let out a soft breath. This time feels different. Taehyun tightened his hold slightly. Because this time, I'm not leaving. Silence. Jehun didn't respond immediately, but he leaned back slightly into him. That was enough. Papa, a small voice broke the moment. Minjun ran into the kitchen, his hair messy, eyes bright. Appa said I can skip school today. Taehyun sighed. I said we can discuss it. That means yes. Minjun replied confidently. Jehun laughed softly. You're learning too. Fast. Minjun grinned, then suddenly stopped. His eyes dropped to Jehun's stomach. Is the baby still there? He asked. Jehun nodded gently. Yes. Minjun walked closer, carefully, then placed a small hand against Jehun's stomach. Hi, he whispered. Taehyun watched quietly, his chest tightening, because this was everything he once lost. And now, he had it back. More than that, he had a second chance. Months passed. Slowly. Carefully. But this time, nothing broke. There were no misunderstandings. No distance. No silence. Only effort. Taehyun stayed. Every time. Even on the hard days. Even when Jehun pushed him away. Even when fear crept back in. You're overthinking again, Taehyun said one night. Jehun lay in bed, staring at the ceiling. What if something goes wrong? He whispered. Taehyun moved closer, placed a hand gently over his stomach. Then we handled together. You're not scared. Taehyun paused. I am. Jehun turned slightly. Then why do you sound so calm? Taehyun looked at him. Because I'm not alone this time. Silence. Jehun's eyes softened. And slowly, he reached for his hand. The day finally came. It wasn't dramatic. No storm. No chaos. Just pain. Breathing. Holding on. And Taehyun never left his side. Not once. Stay with me. Jehun whispered weakly. I'm right here. Taehyun said immediately. I'm not going anywhere. And he didn't. Not this time. When the cry finally filled the room, everything stopped. Jehun's breath shook. Is the baby okay? The nurse smiled. Very healthy. Taehyun let out a breath he didn't know he was holding. And when they placed the baby in Jehun's arms, everything felt complete. He's so small. Jehun whispered. Taehyun sat beside him. Just like Minjun was. Jehun smiled faintly. We really did this again. Taehyun leaned closer. We did it right this time. Later, Minjun stood beside the bed, eyes wide. That's my baby. Jehun laughed softly. Yes. Minjun leaned closer. I'm going to protect him. Taehyun smiled. You'd better. That night, they were all together. No distance. No fear. Just family. Taehyun stood by the window, watching quietly. Jehun holding the baby, Minjun sitting close beside him. And for a moment, he couldn't move, because this was everything he almost lost. Jehun looked up. What are you thinking? Taehyun walked over slowly. That I was an idiot. Jehun raised a brow. You were. Taehyun laughed quietly, and I'll spend the rest of my life making up for it. Jehun looked at him. Long. Then, you already are? Silence. Then, Taehyun leaned down, pressed a soft kiss his forehead. I love you. Jehun's breath caught slightly. I know. A pause. Then, I love you too. And this time, there was no fear behind it. No hesitation. No doubt. Because they had lived through the worst. And still chose each other. Again. And again. And again. Because love was never simple, but for them, it was finally enough.
Thank you for listening. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Don't forget to share and tell your friend about the channel. See you guys in the next video. Bye.